With all the resources in the world completely depleted due to overpopulation, only one corporation is left making food to feed trillions of people. However, the dark reality of where the food comes from is about to leave humanity horrified. The world had been living in grace and beauty in the old times. When humans sped up development, it caused the Earth to suffer, with global warming and pollution causing the Earth to become unhospitable for humans. Famine and homelessness struck the poor people, while the rich continued to live in luxury. The water was contaminated, making it difficult for humans to survive in these conditions. In the year 2022, New York has a population of 40 million people, out of which only a few can afford the luxuries of living. Detective Robert Thorne, living in a cramped apartment, turns on his television. The host of a show talks about Soylent Red and Soylent Yellow, which are high-energy vegetable concentrates that poor people have been eating as food. There has been a new invention of Soylent Green, a miracle food of high-energy plankton gathered from the oceans of the world. The host then introduces the governor, but Robert's old roommate and friend, Saul Roth, a former college professor and police researcher, turns off the television. Robert asks Saul what he found in the cases he gave him. He tells him that he couldn't find any cases that Robert could solve. Robert asks Saul to look harder, but Saul says he's a police book, not a Library of Congress. Robert reads through the cases himself while eating margarine on some old toast. He offers the food to Saul, who refuses. Saul remembers the time before the scientists had poisoned the water and ruined the climate, and there was real food, which was available everywhere. The light in the room begins dimming, and Saul rides a bicycle to bring the power back on. Robert offers to charge the light, but Saul doesn't let him, and Robert heads out to his job. All of the homeless people are sleeping on the staircase, and Robert swings himself over them. There is immense pollution outside and unused broken cars everywhere. This is where all the poor people have been living, while the rich continue to live comfortably. A man, Gilbert, is approached by a well-dressed gentleman named Donovan. Donovan gives Gilbert a meat hook and asks if he has the words straight. Gilbert tells him that he knows the words but doesn't know what they mean. Next, in the rich part of town, a young woman named Cheryl plays joyfully on a big machine with a shooting game. Her lover, William Simonson, watches her amused, and she thanks him for the toy. Cheryl is called by Simonson's bodyguard, Fielding, as she has to restock their house inventory. She promises to bring home a surprise for Simonson. At the shop, the man asks Cheryl to step inside. He shows her fresh beef, which is very hard to come by in these trying times. Cheryl is happy, as she believes she can surprise Simonson with this rare treat. Next, while Cheryl is gone, Gilbert uses the tool to break into Simonson's apartment. He gives Simonson a message from the people who hired him. He says they are sorry, but this is necessary, as they can't risk a catastrophe, since Simonson has become unreliable. Surprisingly, Simonson agrees to this, and Gilbert strikes the old man with the weapon to death. Next, Robert is called to investigate the scene and is taken to the apartment by the landlord. He enters the apartment to find Cheryl and the bodyguard. Cheryl is revealed to be a concubine of the building. She is quiet, while Fielding is confused at Robert's appearance. The bodyguard leads Robert to the body, and he begins his investigation. He learns that Simonson was a lawyer and also involved in politics. Robert asks the bodyguard to get him some booze, and when the man refuses, he tells him that his contract has been canceled, so he doesn't have to listen to the rules anymore. Robert questions the bodyguard, who informs him that Cheryl and he had been sent shopping when Simonson was killed. While walking around, Robert notices the bathroom and finds running water through the taps. He sends the bodyguard to write a statement of his whereabouts, and in the meantime, he washes his face and uses soap, which are luxuries that he cannot afford. He takes a pillowcase and puts some items into it. The bodyguard tries comforting Cheryl, who believes that she shouldn't have left the building. Robert approaches her and asks her to talk with him. He checks her skin and notices that she has no bruises, meaning Simonson never abused her. He asks Cheryl some questions to gauge if she could be the murderer, but finds that she is innocent. When the sanitation squad arrives, he sends Cheryl off and signs off on the case as a murder. Robert leaves with the pillowcase and arrives home. He gives Saul paper and pencils and shows him everything he brought back, including some vegetables, the special beef, the booze, and 2 volumes of Soylent Oceanographic Survey Reports, 2015-2219. Overwhelmed by all these things that are now rare luxuries, Sewell begins crying, wondering how humanity came to this. Robert asks Sewell to search for more information on Simonson. Robert heads to work and discusses the murder with his lieutenant, Hatcher. He mentions that he thinks the bodyguard killed Simonson but isn't sure about it. He mentions that Sherrill was too gentle to do something so gruesome. It appears the standards for detective work have fallen drastically in this day and age. Robert heads to a building where he asks for Tab Fielding, Simonson's former bodyguard. He heads to the apartment where a woman is relaxing and begins banging on the door. She hides something in the room before opening the door. The woman tells Robert that Fielding isn't home and introduces herself as Martha Phillips, his concubine. Robert searches the apartment but finds nothing. He tells Martha to inform Fielding that he stopped by. At home, Sol and Robert enjoy a hearty meal from the ingredients Robert stole. Afterward, Sol tells him that this is what life was like in his prime. Robert asks for more information on Simonson, and Sol tells him that he was an important man. He was the director of Soylent. The success of the business made him incredibly rich. Robert asks him to find out as much as he can. Later, when Robert heads to work, he hears a sound and discovers that he's being followed. He calls the precinct and updates Hatcher. He tells him that he's still working on the case. As the lieutenant shuts the call, he's told by Donovan that the precinct should listen to the governor. Hatcher agrees to shut down the investigation. Robert visits Simonson's apartment, where he finds that Sherrill has invited her friends. He calls her into the bedroom and tells her to get on the bed. Sherrill begins to strip, and Robert continues asking her questions. He's not reading the room right at all. He asks if she met any of Simonson's friends, and she tells him about Mr. Lempeter, a man called Tompkins, and the governor Santini. Robert is surprised to hear that Simonson was acquainted with Santini. He asks if she ever went anywhere with him, and she reveals that he had gone to church a month ago and a few days before his death. She adds that he prayed and spoke to a priest. Sherrill lets Robert know that Simonson's behavior had gotten strange before his death. He refused to touch her and cried a lot. Finally, Robert and Sherrill give in to their passion and become intimate. Next, the landlord enters the building and begins beating the concubines for leaving their units. Exiting the room, Robert stops him and suggestively asks if he wants trouble. The landlord leaves. As the concubines leave, Sherrill asks Robert to stay and offers him a hot bath and breakfast. He resists, but gives in after she tells him that being alone frightens her. He enjoys a hot bath with Sherrill, where the two get intimate again. He is so low-key, so glad Simonson got murdered. Next, he heads to the church where he finds a mother dead on the steps and a small child next to her. He carries the child inside and hands him to a nun. He visits the priest, who refuses to tell him anything due to the sanctity of the confession, only mentioning that the truth is horrible and is destroying him. Robert doesn't learn much, except that the truth is something that is impacting all who know it. Later, Robert heads to work and finds out that they're shutting the case. Furious, he confronts Hatcher, who tries to convince him to drop it. When that doesn't work, Hatcher promises to cover for Robert, but Robert refuses, as it would put his job on the line if he was caught dropping such an important case for no reason. Despite being warned, Robert continues working on the case. Donovan visits the governor and informs him that Robert is refusing to drop the case because of Simonson's confession. Santini asks him to stop Robert no matter what it takes. Fielding visits the priest and shoots him in the confession room. Robert is placed on riot duty, and due to the shortage of Soylent Green, the crowd begins to react negatively. They begin to attack the police, and Gilbert, Simonson's assassin, is among the crowd. A police riot vehicle is used to scoop up the protesters and dump them for disposal. The crowd begins to panic and rushes the opposite way, creating difficulty for people to move through. While moving through the crowd, Gilbert attempts to kill Robert, but misses 3 times. He only manages to kill innocent people, and Robert follows him. Robert finally catches up to him and throws him on the ground next to the police riot vehicle. However, Gilbert shoots his leg. Gilbert is suddenly crushed by the police riot vehicle as its scoop comes down on him with full force. Robert looks at the mangled body of Gilbert and believes that Fielding sent him to do this. Fielding arrives home and is beaten up by a hidden Robert. Fielding refuses to answer any questions, and Robert warns him not to follow, or he will kill him. Sol brings the Soylent oceanographic survey reports to the team of other researchers. He finds out the truth, and it horrifies him. The council tells him that Simonson was killed because he was about to confess the truth to the world. Shaken to his core by the horrible reality, Sol heads to a government clinic for assisted suicide. Robert returns home to find Sol's note and rushes to the clinic. He forces the worker to open the door by strangling him. However, he is too late to save Sol. In his final moments, Sol tells him that he loves him, and Robert says it back. Before dying, Sol tells Robert the truth, and Robert is horrified as well. Sol asks him to go to the disposal and get proof. As Sol is carried out, Robert follows and manages to get into the back of one of the disposal trucks. He's taken to the disposal unit, where he explores the factory. It's revealed that all of the dead bodies taken to the disposal are being used to make Soylent Green. The nutrient wafer is made out of people, instead of plankton-like as it was advertised. Robert is caught by the workers and manages to escape, fighting off a worker in the process. He reaches outside and calls Hatcher and Shirl. He tells Shirl to stay safe and Hatcher to help him. However, when he notices the men looking for him, he cuts the call and begins shooting at them. He manages to kill many workers and rushes to escape. As he runs, he's chased by Fielding, who shoots him in his torso. Robert falls to the ground, is unable to stand, and can't reach his gun. He realizes that he's near the church and enters the building, with Fielding hot on his tail. Fielding chases after Robert, but when an innocent woman moves and makes noise, he ends up shooting her. Screams echo throughout the hall as the people realize what is happening. Robert attacks Fielding, but his gunshot wound and loss of blood make him weak. Fielding overpowers Robert, consistently punching him and knocks him to the ground. Weak but determined, Robert finds a knife nearby which he takes in his hand. As Fielding creeps up behind him, ready to shoot, Robert suddenly stabs him in the stomach. Fielding shoots innocent humans as he falls to the ground. At that moment, Hatcher arrives with his team and the paramedics. Hatcher tells Robert that he doesn't listen, but he's an excellent cop. As they tend to Robert's injuries, he tells Hatcher to get to the exchange and tell them that they are right. Hatcher is confused. Robert tells him that the ocean is dying, and the plankton in the ocean are dying. Finally, he confesses to Hatcher that Soylent Green is made out of people, instead of plankton from the ocean. Robert is lifted onto a stretcher, and he tells Hatcher that they plan on breeding people like cattle because of the lack of resources left on Earth. Hatcher promises to tell everyone. Despite this, as Robert is being carried out, he yells out to the whole room that Soylent Green is made out of humans and that everyone should be aware of the horrors that Soylent has been doing. The end. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like our channel and subscribe if you enjoy content like this. Also, let us know what movie you would love us to recap for you.